Welcome to the Future AI podcast, helping you learn about AI the easy way. And I'm your host, Pranath Fernando. And today I'm really pleased to have Bonnie as my guest. How you doing, Bonnie?
I'm great.
So the way me and Bonnie met, I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later in the episode, but basically we're both on the Substack platform, and I was intrigued to discover a post that Bonnie did that related to an article, which is very much on the topic of this podcast. So I was really, really pleased. And then when I found out more about Bonnie's background, yeah, I was just really, really thrilled to have her on. So yes, maybe that's a good place to start. Would you like to maybe share with our audience about your background?
Well, first of all, let me say that that article, are you blindsided? It was about being blindsided by AI. That was my first Substack article.
Oh,
Um,
right. Okay.
yeah,
Good
it
one.
was my entry into this platform. Um, but I've had a varied corporate career. I started at an entry level and made my way up to the C-suite. I was CEO of a national company. I took that company through divestiture. I later got involved in healthcare tech. I was one of three principals in a healthcare tech company, and we raised 18 million in venture capital, and I was a part of that experience and we can certainly talk about that. Um, and I've just had a variety of executive management and sales experience over the years. I started my own business in 2007 as an executive coach. And as we've discussed, and certainly as I talk about in my newsletter, Own Your Ambition, I really wanted to focus on helping women gain the visibility and credibility that they deserve and to stand in their power, own their ambition, own their value. So that's really been the kind of the mission of my writing, of my coaching, of my speaking, workshops, and the two books that I've written.
And you've also written more widely, is that right? In Forbes as well?
Yeah, I started writing for Forbes in 2011, and that's when they first started Forbes Woman. And they actually invited me in and said they were starting this new initiative, and would I consider being a writer, a contributing writer for them. And it's, that's the power of the internet because when I started my coaching practice, I set up a blog right on my website, and they saw that article, wanted to publish it on Forbes, and then they brought me in.
No, that's really yeah, so you've had a very broad and deep experience, I suppose, in the business world. And but yeah, I think it'd be really great to get on to discussing that article. So yeah, would you, I suppose, yeah, like to sort of just lay out the key points of that article you wrote, so about, yeah, AI. So.
Well, I was basically taken back by some of the new studies and research that's been done about um, the fact that AI, it's predicted that by, I think, 2032, something like 90% of the jobs will require AI skills. And, just diving into it a little bit more, there's also research that shows that women, especially, are vulnerable and at risk for losing their jobs because of their hesitancy to adopt and engage with AI. And because women are currently in jobs where which involves automation, they are especially vulnerable. And it's not that they're going to be replaced by AI. It's that they're going to be replaced by men especially, who are much more literate. in AI. So my article really focused on we need to get over whatever that hesitancy is and and figure out a way to stay marketable and stay relevant by adopting AI. And of course, when you reached out to me and you said, would you be on my podcast? I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I am certainly not an expert here. You are the expert. But I think we're certainly going to complement each other in this conversation.
Well, 100%. Yes, the AI area is my area of expertise, but business and the perspective from a woman's point of view of being in business, the kind of things that hold women back, that is more your area of expertise. So together, I think actually, uh, that's the point. I think we can hopefully throw a bit more light on this, and so I'd actually like to follow up. And when I ask this, I totally appreciate it's a you may not have necessarily be familiar with all the studies, but so I ask this as much from your personal perspective, from your experience, your instincts, as much from that. Um, and it is a complex question I'm going to ask, but basically, yeah, what do you think are the range of reasons that hold women back from wanting to learn and engage? Bearing in mind they're going to be complex and nuanced,
Well, as I
probably.
say in the article, and this is my own kind of bias as well, I truly value critical thinking. And I had the misconception, shall we say, that you really need to sacrifice one for the other. That if
Oh, so
you,
for which that would
if,
be.
in other words, you need to, that belief that critical thinking is the most important thing can be true. And at the same time, you can still expand your horizons and learn AI. And so it's not kind of a binary, it's not like an either or thing. And I've just learned from my own experience, just sticking my little toe into AI and learned a lot more about it from my personal use as well as from reading about it. It certainly is the future, and women need to be a part of that future. We need to definitely be at the table, not only because we need the skills to stay marketable, but we also need to be at the table to help shape the future of AI because women have been excluded in the technology field from really leading the narrative, and for a number of reasons. There's systemic bias, societal norms, a lack of female role models in tech. There's a whole range of reasons why women have been kind of marginalized and pushed out. But what happens is that then we don't have a voice in how AI is being formed. And from what I've read, it, when AI algorithms are being used, for instance, in hiring practices, in promotion, there are a lot of nuances to a woman's career that are not included in these algorithms because a woman's voice isn't at the table. And that leads to a lot of women just being disregarded, not hired, not promoted, because maybe they took some time off to raise a child. When that appears generically on a resume and then you're kicked out because nobody is looking at the overall career trajectory of a woman, that's potentially damaging.
Mm. Um, and did you yeah, I suppose in the article, I actually you highlighted a few key metrics which I've got, I which I can read out. So I think you said so women only make up about 19%, I think, of software developers globally. and women remain underrepresented in maths degrees, 43% of bachelor degrees. And this trend is consistent with previous years. In software engineering, women make up 25%. Like, just to share anecdotally, so I have a computer science degree, and on that degree, out of a group of about 60 odd, there was, I think, five women, basically. So, yeah.
So, and women only hold 14% of leadership executive roles in tech firms. Um, and I think that's significant to this discussion because there's a lack of female role models.
It
And
almost feels like, I wonder, do you mean by that, or are you getting at, in a way, there's a sort of chicken and egg situation in a way, you know?
um, in that yes,
Well,
yeah.
in that, if there's a lack of role models, less women are more inclined. I mean, again, this might sound a little bit flippant, but you know, when children see, uh, let's say, women, for example, succeeding as YouTube stars and TikTok, then it's easy for them to aspire to that, which many do. But obviously, if they're not seeing themselves represented in certain other areas, it's kind of hard to aspire to it, isn't it? So.
Right. And, that's been cited in research as well, that when women first enter the workforce, if they don't see women in leadership positions, that affects their ambition and aspirations to really be a leader themselves. And they kind of feel like well, it's not necessarily possible. But talking about why women don't embrace AI is has a lot to do with, I think, our need for being perfect, for being 150% qualified. And so we're not necessarily jumping on something new to learn because we feel like we aren't qualified. We're not entering the tech field for fear that we don't have all the skills. And I think that's something that is not just related to tech. It's about women and ambition and leadership as well, where, a man could feel like he's 70% qualified.
Actually, something I just want to highlight on that as well is because I think it's not incorrect to speak about this bias. I think it's well supported by the data, but I think there have been some arguments or some opinions made that for a whole number of reasons, maybe women just don't have that capability or something like that. But I think the facts kind of the
Yeah,
opposite. It's just that, for example, there are certain facts about really prominent women in the technical field that are just underreported. And I'll just give you a classic example I know of. So during the Apollo program, space program, so there is, of course, a lot of focus on the astronauts, and to be fair, obviously they were the first humans to land on the moon. What has been completely erased from history, though, um, was somebody called Margaret Hamilton, amongst quite a few other women. So Margaret Hamilton was the lead programmer for the computer programs that essentially enabled the space craft to go to the moon, all the precise calculations. So even in that time where there was a lot of gender bias, her capability was so outstanding that she was actually the lead program, and that's just a fact. And yet she's not kind of remembered in the same way as many other prominent people were from that time. So I think, and there is actually many other examples.
yeah. So I'm working on an article now for Substack about a female founder, Maria Delord Zolo. And she's founder of the company B, which has created an AI personal assistant, right? And not only am I fascinated, she's always been in tech, her whole career, but it's how she has used her natural instincts of, say, empathy and resilience to create a personal assistant that will really help people rather than coming up with some assumptions about how people use their time and their productivity, what they're looking for. So, like resilience and empathy are strong female characteristics. And so for me, I want to elevate more women like that. And I certainly have in my Forbes column as well about women in tech, not just AI, but who have really created some incredible products.
And actually, to one of your points there, I would say the how can I put it, the gender imbalance that's been in the sciences and also in AI, like a very, very obvious and glaring reflection of that is what AI is. And I would say there's a pretty strong case to say that what AI, artificial intelligence, the intelligence bit that it's sought to focus on, and bearing in mind, there's not just one kind of intelligence, there are many different kinds of intelligence. There's intellectual intelligence, there's emotional intelligence, there's social intelligence. But the AI that we built is focused on the intellectual type intelligence. And I think that's very much a reflection of the bias of men that would tend to maybe more naturally be biased towards that. So I think that's another glaring like elephant in the room about AI is it's only really focused on developing one type of intelligence, the kind that is generally, I mean, obviously there's exceptions, but I mean, generally men are more inclined to value. And yet, we're running into all kinds of problems now because, of course, AI only has that type of intelligence and not the others. And now we find when these AI systems are deployed into interacting with people, their lack of ability with those other intelligences that most humans have is really, really showing. So that's,
And
I
that's
think,
what women can bring to the table, right?
exactly.
Talk about valuing AI. I think that that's really where we need to start to bring more women into this industry is educate women about the value of AI because there is research out there that says that women push it away because they don't think it's particularly valuable. And I think that educating about what it is, to your point, what is artificial intelligence and what the value is, not only in the workplace, but in our personal lives.
And I wonder, I'm just speculating, just obviously from my own limited perspective, but I wonder if maybe for some women, uh, some of the reasons might be that they might see AI as a potentially dehumanizing technology. And I suppose from my perspective, what I would say about that is that I can see that, but I also feel that it isn't inherently dehumanizing. I think the dehumanization comes more about how we use it rather
Exactly.
than inherently, in the same way that I don't see, I don't know, a robot vacuum cleaner or something like that as inherently, or maybe like a washing machine. I don't see that as inherently dehumanizing. It's a tool, but obviously, like with any tool, there are good ways and not good ways to use it. And I think sometimes we get that confused when we see a bad application of a technology, we blame the technology rather than blame the use of it.
Well, I agree totally. And not only the blame, but when there is a lack of information and certainly a lot of misinformation out there, um, women will retreat. If we think that it's dangerous, I mean, and I'm not even talking about it's going to take your job, right? That it is uncontrollable, that it's going to start to replicate itself, and nobody really knows where the long-term future is. Instead of really diving in and trying to learn more about it, which, across genders, I think everybody needs to. And I know you're a proponent of that and you support it and you do it. we really need to make people more aware of the benefits. And when in the process of doing the research for this article about Zolo and her product, I just realized that there are so many benefits that can help all of us to having an AI personal assistant. And it does democratize. I mean, because if you're a CEO, you have a personal assistant who does your scheduling, who listens to you, who makes recommendations, answers your emails, that kind of thing. But the average person doesn't have that. And so, learning more about it and how it can actually benefit all of us, I think is really critical because it's not going away.
Mm. And I think for me, one thing I'd like to say as well is, really, I think it's really important to a great extent to understand where people's feelings are, regardless of maybe, how reasonable they're not. People are where they are to some extent with their feelings, and what I understand when people do feel like afraid of that unknown and that uncertainty. Although what I'll also like to just add to that is, um, if we respond to that fear and uncertainty by disengaging, it actually makes it more likely for the outcomes to happen that we don't
Absolutely.
prefer. We can only affect the outcomes if we're actually getting involved and learning. If we fear certain outcomes, then they're not going to get any less likely if we just withdraw, essentially. So that's what I'll
And
gently
that,
say about that.
that definitely that highlights some of, one of our earlier points that women do need to get involved because if you're interested in the outcome, if you are concerned that algorithms are used in the hiring process, don't run away from it. Learn more about it and get involved. To me, that's, just so important. If we see a danger or we see let's say an opening, for me, I always see this as an opportunity. This is a great opportunity for women to step up and influence the future of AI.
100%. And from my perspective, those unique skills that women tend to be stronger on are desperately needed in this area, to put it plainly. But I'd like to actually just come back to a couple of things as well about, I suppose, about training and education. And I know you sort of wrote in your article about, what more companies and even institutions could do to ensure that we try and rebalance the imbalance that we have in helping people, women be more educated. But I suppose so. One thing I wanted to offer as a alternative route, as I shared with you in a previous discussion, what I worry is if we wait on large corporations out of the goodness of their heart, or even good sense, which they don't necessarily always have in all areas, that could be a long time coming. And an alternative I see, rather than wait for them to actually be proactive, is there's now a lot more online self-education resources. So while we should continue to ask and expect companies to do more of that, we don't need to wait for that. There's a lot the women can do now to help educate themselves, which just wasn't possible before because we used
Right.
to rely on either the institutions, educational or companies as the gatekeepers of knowledge. But now that's no longer true. We have the internet, we have the educational resources. So yeah,
And
what do you
then
think
there
about
are those
that?
individuals who want to get a job who don't have one yet, you
Well,
know,
yes,
and the
exactly.
responsibility is certainly on themselves to upskill and learn the skills that are necessary. But, you know, one of the things I did bring up in that article is encouraging women to just jump in, baby step, maybe. And I'm still at the baby step, stage, certainly. But especially after doing the research for that article and reading more up about, more about it. Um, I have started to incorporate AI more into my life and into my business. And I think even if it's just like, a little baby step, encouraging women to just, figure out one thing or write down several things where you think AI could help you and write out a list and then do some research and see what's out there.
Mm.
AI certainly can help with scheduling. Um, it can help in so many ways to increase our productivity, which, women are burned out and they're trying to raise families and they're trying to balance that with a job. We all need help to really focus.
And so another thing that like I just wanted to offer from my own expertise and experience that I've seen. So we've sort of spoken about the impact of AI on companies and employment, let's say. Um, but what I'm seeing more and more is that same disruptive capability that can enable certain tasks to be done and to be more productive. What I'm also seeing is that enables it makes it much easier for people to start their own businesses and scale. Because essentially, and literally, I've been doing this. I've been helping a photographer this week. She's just a solo photographer, and I've built these automations that basically schedule her social media posts in exactly the way she wants, so she can just pre-schedule it in a spreadsheet. But then I've sort of
Well,
designed the
I'll sign up for
automations.
that.
But I think that I suppose, yeah, no, but I think I think people see the employment risk, which is true, but the flip side of that is it's a huge lever up for those that want to start their own businesses and essentially have their own like mini AI employees. Now, on the one hand, some people might say, oh, well, this is not going to be good because you would have previously employed somebody and now all the junior roles are going. And yes, there's something in there. But I suppose to come back to an earlier point that you said, this change is happening and that change brings challenges and benefits. So, one of the challenges is the disruption and threat to our traditional employment model. However, one of the opportunities is for those more entrepreneurially minded, it does make it much easier to build and scale businesses, even as a solo business owner. And literally, I'm helping people. That's what I'm doing with my consulting and AI agency. Aside from my Substack, I actually am helping businesses, mostly solopreneurs in my local area, to understand how it can help them. So, yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. So,
Well, my first thought is I want to sign up for it.
okay, well, then let's
No,
get in
I
touch.
mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just get, I've had my own business since 2007, and over that time period, I have hired individuals and companies to help me out. And right now, I I don't have that as type of assistance, and quite honestly, I'm overwhelmed, just overwhelmed. Well, what have you done? You've got all these posts that you need to put up, you on social media, um, and read what everybody else is thinking and writing. And I'm not saying that AI can necessarily do that, although AI can certainly summarize some of the research that I'm interested in, that I need for my own articles, etc. Um, and so it really is overwhelming. And I think that one of the great opportunities is exactly what you're doing for solopreneurs, like myself, who are out there trying to, juggle a million things. Now, I'm pretty organized innately, but that doesn't mean that there isn't um, still a lot of tasks to do that I think can be simplified.
absolutely. I'm just a
I
little
think
bit
you're onto
mind.
something.
Well, no, I think it's the the irony is, even though it's kind of technical, I see it as a huge creative opportunity because there's there's the possibilities, but the applications are just only being explored. So that's why I'm very excited to be doing that. So I'm a little bit mindful we're running out of time, which is a real shame because there's more I would like to get through, but so I'm just going to try and be a bit mindful to focus on a couple of little things. Um, so I really heard what you were saying about I suppose the unique risks that women have in the workplace because I would hope it's not controversial to kind of say men are just a little bit more likely in the moment in our culture to be willing to learn those skills and, to be sort of in those roles.
Well,
However,
that's backed by research. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
I suppose I just additionally, I would like to, I suppose, offer another possibility that may also be simultaneously true, which is I can see a possibility for where women could actually have an advantage as well if they want to lean into it. And that's what I was alluding to earlier. AI is really good at intellectual intelligence and that type of thing, not very good because men have been building it at the social intelligence and emotional intelligence. So, and this is traditionally areas, as I know we've discussed, that businesses don't value but are valuable to the businesses that are there with the people using them, mostly women, sometimes men. And, when those skills are gone, they lose that value of those social connections and intelligence. So I think there's a role, well, huge opportunity for the women that are able to lean into gaining those AI skills and complement them with those social and emotional strengths, because those will be the exact areas that cannot be automated. And they'll be, when they try to automate certain roles and jobs, and then they realize, oh, actually, there was a lot more going on in this role it wasn't just about the information, it was actually all the relationships they were maintaining, then the kind of strengths that women naturally have are going to be even more valued. And so, yeah, that's another possibility that I also see.
Right. And that, that speaks to an earlier point we were talking about. It's not either or. Really, to be more impactful, you need both.
And I think the weaknesses in businesses in the workplace will be where we're missing out on some of those abilities, and those are simultaneously the opportunities. So again, from the perspective of women, if they're able to gain more of those AI skills on top of this natural abilities they already have, that's going to be absolutely not only fantastic, businesses desperately are going to need that combination.
Right. And, in my article, I talked about how AI opens up new opportunities, even in the field you are. I think I gave an example of a female lawyer who realized that now, if she, in her focus on compliance, AI will be of tremendous usefulness for her. Um, and she can expand her role in that. So I think that women have a huge opportunity that they probably don't even know about in how in their particular industry or in their role they can use AI to not only expand their horizons, but make themselves more marketable and relevant in the long term. And so looking for those openings, depending on your industry.
Absolutely. And those opportunities are just waiting to be discovered. And as I would say again, many of those opportunities, women are uniquely placed to be able to excel and succeed in. And yeah, those opportunities and the first women to really step into those
But
roles are going
part
to.
of it, and we haven't talked about this, and I don't know whether we even have time, is that we also need male allies. We need men in the tech industry, in AI, to welcome women, to build more inclusive workplaces and communities, to value those kind of contributions that women bring that you're talking about, because it is such a male-dominated field that women do need allies. It's not just like, it's going to happen overnight. And I think that's also a big message that we need to get out there.
No, absolutely. No, you're right.
It's not only women that need to see the value, it's that men need to see the value of women in AI.
I mean, my own view is one of the biggest limitations to how useful AI will be because of what we're missing out very much in this respect. And yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. So I'm afraid we've only got a few about 30 seconds left. So thank you so much. It's been really, really great discussion. I think we could have discussed a lot more.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do another one sometime.
Well,
And
I'd be interested in learning more about how you help women start up businesses,
yes,
um, how you help women solopreneurs.
yes, no, maybe message me. I mean, I could share maybe another time about the client I'm working with at the moment, and that could be an interesting case study, in fact, maybe for you. So
Right. I think I should interview you for for my newsletter.
sounds good. I'd love that. So
Okay.
thanks again for coming on, and yeah, it's been really, really great discussion, and yeah, thank you. So
Thank you for
all right,
inviting.
take care.
All
We'll
right.
be in
Bye-bye.
touch. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Bye bye.